Joining me, as always, are my dear friends and coaches, Nolan Chang, Keone McKeague, and Jared Shirai. Boys, how you doing? How's it going?
I'm doing well.
I've been chilling.
Just ready for these,
I'm good.
These Laker dubs.
What Laker
Dubs?
dubs? I'm sorry.
Yeah, dubs? Does that work?
Hey, where are the
Maybe.
Bulls, guys?
Any more some of these?
Where are the
We're
Bulls?
gonna be vacationing with you guys very soon in Cancun.
Yeah, boy.
We're already getting the drinks ready for you guys.
Getting the coolest packed, getting the yacht reserved. It's all good.
We should just if both our teams make the playoffs and get eliminated, just next year all of us go to Cancun. We're here
Word, bro.
For you guys, yeah.
That'd be what's up. On
Can't even get everyone
today's
to go to Vegas.
Team Huddle, we'll be going over our most humbling experiences, both as a player and as a coach, that we've all been through, at least. But first, as always, let's do our check-ins with the notable coaches on the pod. Jared, I'll throw it over to you first. How is your week going? I think it's all club season now, right? Because high school's wrapped up. Okay. Yeah.
High school's done. We had our third and fourth boys practice this week. Had my girls. Just got back from Chicago for the VLA, where we took 3 teams and we placed first, second, third. So I mean, the team that I played with, we finished second. Yeah, we had it was a rough final, but I mean, the old Ruckus team, the NV team, they ended up. I don't think they dropped a set the whole tournament. I think they 3-0'd everybody.
Jeez.
Yeah, and that's with vesting their actual starters. So the second team came in clutch for them. But coaching this week, not too bad. Just getting back in the groove of things for boys, girls. Just getting through the season to the end. So
Right.
we're getting there. We're getting there.
We are almost done, as some would
Yes,
say.
month and a half.
That's when you know things aren't going great.
Right.
That was very professional.
Jared was just waiting for that soiree and then the flight to Utah.
Flight
Yeah.
to Utah, baby.
Oh my gosh. Well, Nolan, I'll kick it over to you. I know you were also getting that club vibe ready. So how are things going for you this week?
Good. Definitely having good turnouts for the boys team, and we do have 14 on the roster right now for just our second half team, and then we're combining for a full 15 with the 18s teams for those who are available for nationals in July. But right now the team looks good, and once again, it still makes me clench my fists in anger. I was like, where were half you boys trying out in the first half? Because we really could have used you, and this could have been a different story.
Right.
Right. But they're working hard. They look like a volleyball team now. Their last half there was a couple guys who were the standouts, and then everyone else was kind of just surrounding, supporting cast. But now there's more guys who are kind of pushing each other to kind of get things better because they don't want to be the second string. And we were pretty open about that, not only with this team as well as our national teams. Like, hey, we're going with a full roster. We have an idea who our starters are going to be. I'm letting you know this now. If you're parents and you are signing up because you think you're paying to fly to Utah to play, that is not what's going to happen. We are going to do our best to make sure everyone sees the court, but we have who our rotation will be and who is the next man or next man after that off the bench. But because we're going with such a full roster, we have to be open with you guys that we're not just going to make a team A, team B for first set, second set. If it comes down to that and we can balance that out perfectly, all right, let's run it. But just so you guys are aware, and if you guys want to back out of signing up for nationals given that stipulation, that is fine. We hold nothing against you. No one declined, so we're still going with the full 15. And I'm hoping that just means that they're going to fight a lot harder when we do have more conjoined practices closer to the tournament.
Yeah.
Girls practice, kind of the same boat as Jared. We're just fighting the good fight to get to the end there. A lot more frequently, we've had players just missing for random things. And it's been a little annoying. We had one practice with 5 girls out of 13.
Wow.
And then that we said, hey, we can get you girls extra court time because we know that you guys are going to make this one. only 2 showed up, and that was just me pretty much doing a private with two girls. So it was kind of weird. But I don't know if it's just the players themselves. They're not great. They're a hardworking bunch. And yeah, like we're not our ones team, right? So, but they're a hardworking bunch, and they have been working hard. So I was hoping that more would kind of be a little more committed, but so such is life. So
I'm curious, like, is it? I mean, because I'm sure we'll get into that topic
Mhm.
sometime down the road, as far as like coaching men versus women. Is there like, is there like a reason? What is it
I
about
don't
this
know.
to you both specifically that kind of have like issues with your
There
women's
were a lot
teams?
of AP tests going on, and we are in
Yes.
a kind of academic oriented area, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
there were multiple times where like I have to study for the AP test I have tomorrow. I was like, which one? It's like AP Euro. I was like, no one cares about the European history. Come on, come on, come to practice. And I always tell my players before every season, I was like, look, if you're missing my practice because you need to study the night before a test, you obviously are not going to pass that test if you don't know all the information already. Like
Mm.
if you're gonna like procrastinate everything up to the night before, that is not my issue. That is your issue. I still expect you to take 2 hours out of your day, come to practice, and be there. Practice, go home. I know none of you start your homework till like 10:30 anyway. I was there. I was that kid.
Right.
So I was like, don't play me.
Wait,
I
what?
was just like,
I will say, I
like
think a
how
lot of the time,
stereotypical
yeah.
of your area to have more book oriented.
Why do you say that, Keone? Why do you?
I didn't even
What are
show
you
what
implying
that
there,
demographic
Keone?
is.
Look at him.
Yes.
No, I'm just joking.
Damn.
Wow.
I got
There
real
are
really
a
fast.
lot of academic scholarships being handed out in that area.
That's what I had at home.
Hey.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh,
But I will
God.
say, at least from what I notice, going in between, girls and guys, sometimes when you get to the end of things, girls are just like so much more likely to hit that point of being burnt from volleyball than guys are. And I think, especially when it comes down to club, I haven't experienced it much because I stay out of the club world, but from what I've gathered, it's just like you get to that point of they've done preseason for clubs since July. Then they do tryouts in September. Then they do a whole club season through the winter. Then they do high school on top of that. And then by the time you get them in, that January, like that whole spring season when they're still trying to qualify for bids and they get back to the summer part, they're just like at a point where
I think
they're
that's
just
true.
done with volleyball. You know what I mean?
And
Whereas
That's a really good
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
boys,
I'm assuming your seasons are kind of the same how ours break down because, like, in California, you start boys club in like September-ish, goes
yeah, they
till
run
maybe the
parallel.
end of
So we got girls
December.
and
Then
guys.
they
Yeah,
get that break from us, then go to their high school teams, which could be better, could be worse. Whether that's more friends that you have on the team or better competition on the team or whatever it may be.
sure.
Then after that finishes, it's kind of like you get a reset and they come back for the second half. Where I don't think, in comparison to girls, where you start your high school season and
Mhm.
then it's just like 6-7 months of club straight, and you're just
Oh,
you do get that.
that
kind of
actually makes
burnout.
that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Mhm.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it too, especially
Mhm.
on top of that, they're it's a it's a meme, but it is a very academically inclined area, so you have that pressure of school stuff, right? And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
right, and then on top of that,
Mhm.
they're girls playing volleyball.
What do you
so.
mean?
I-
What do you
Very
mean?
good point.
I don't know what would I what huh? What's going on? What's going on there? Keone, how are the drunkards at the yard? How is our
You know what's
favorite
funny is
dysfunctional volleyball team doing?
for those who don't know, my parents are here for the next couple of weeks. They're here for my nephew's graduation, which I got to go to, in a couple of hours. But so the reason they were here is for that, but then they find out that I'm playing volleyball, so they're like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to come watch it." I'm like, "You really don't want to."
You don't.
I really
It's-
don't want you to come.
Yeah, and for
Please
those who know
don't do
who
this.
my dad is and know stories of my dad, you'll know that the most he's not the best at hiding his emotions when it comes to sports.
Oh no,
He's the
Dear
dad.
God.
What?
Yeah,
Dear
he's
God.
the dad that makes those faces, and I already told I like prefaced everybody before the game, like, just so you know, he's gonna come. he'll probably be very nice to you in person. He won't say a thing. He'll smile, he'll shake your hand, say great game. But then immediately following, when we're riding home together, it'll be like,
hey, the Aaron guy kind of
why,
suck, huh?
yeah, why this guy did that? Why this guy did that? That was stupid. How come he set the ball over on two? Like, I'm like, Dad, it's like intramural ball. They don't even play volleyball. It's just like, no, I don't care. Why are you guys not setting up plays? And I tell you not, it was exactly that conversation immediately after. And it's funny because I told my team that prior to the game, and it just so happened because we don't normally drink before the game, but yesterday one of the guys he's leaving our shop to go to another shop, so it was his going away party. So we decided to show up 2 hours before the game, and everybody get drunk before the game, and then play the game. So naturally, they did not come out very good. And on top of that, I was missing some key people, so there was that, which made it that much worse.
When you have a little few,
we had the opposite effect, so we lost by like a good almost 10 points in the first set. Okay. And then suddenly everybody, I think, kind of sobered up a little bit. I kind of got to a point where I was just like, okay, we can't lose this game. So
my dad,
I just literally, I literally told him, like, just set me over and over again. But
give me the ball.
Thankfully, they sobered up in the second one. We picked it up. We won that one. And then the third one came, and we kind of trounced them in the last one. I just literally, like, between me and the two guys who were, like, kind of sober, I was just like, let's just set each other. We'll set each other. You set me. Like, let's just keep that going.
I'll set you.
Yeah, like, literally.
No, I
so
think I could really contribute. Like, shut the fuck up. Set me.
Give Johnny the ball.
Okay. Shut your mouth, or I'll shut it for you. Okay.
Yeah. And so we won. And I just told everybody after, I was like, see, he's still going to have a lot of critiques, but at least it'll be a little bit better because we won. And if we'd lost, it would have been worse, but it was still pretty bad. So I was like, all right. I just told everybody, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you what he said.
Have you guys, any of you seen Renfield at all?
No.
The movie with Nick Cage and Nicholas Hoult?
I have not. No. Yeah.
Nick Cage.
I swear they listened to us or some shit, because there's this one guy, Kyle, and every time he talks, they go, shut the fuck up, Kyle.
It's always a Kyle, man.
There's always a Kyle.
There's always a Kyle.
Man.
But yes, we did win, and I just caught the full brunt of the ear crap after from my dad. But thankfully, I played phenomenal. So, forget what else happened. I was like, I don't care. I was like, you can talk bad about everybody else. So I was like,
as long as you're not talking shit to me.
I did good, Dad. I did good.
Though?
I did good.
That's wild. That's wild. I would say the boys had their had districts this week. They accomplished their goal of getting to the district championship game against Beyond, one of the most notable boys volleyball schools for at least our metro area. And it just it's just the state of our program as a whole. Like, this group set a different precedent. They changed the culture, and it's turning in that direction. Fact that we got to the district championship game, bit of a walk-in given the opponent we had to go through to get there, but at the end of the day, it's just one of those times where when you don't have that postseason experience and understanding that, like, their private school name doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what great clubs they play for. Like, you guys are just as good athletically. We have a game plan. It's working. Like, just stick to it. So couldn't really get past the headlights, if you will. And didn't really start playing until set 3. And by then, damage was kind of already done. And they went out fighting. They lost that third set, 25-22. Couldn't be prouder. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of where the program's at with this group. And no, super proud of how they finished. But I do wish there was a world where they would have just realized, like, F these kids. You know what I mean? They pay to go to school. And we could,
get paid to go to school.
One of the two.
Or that. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, I just kind of wish that was kind of how that went. But it was a great end of the year. Went 11-21 last year. They were, I think, 13-16 by the time we finished stuff up, and in a district championship, all these good things and whatnot. And then my adult national team today, we had a tournament all day. We didn't drop a set, and we ended up taking home a little $300 cash prize to put towards our hotels down in Dallas. So pretty solid week of volleyball. Yeah, it
Right
was pretty
on.
good. Plus, I say set 10 sets and didn't break anything, so that's a big
That's a
win.
win.
That's
for
always a
me.
plus right there, bro.
Yeah.
That's a dub guarantee right there.
Huge dub. And then
That
my
is an old man like victory right there. We're just
You
like,
always
yes, I
know.
didn't hurt anything.
You always
I
know if
really-
it was a bad day when like you're doing that kind of closing thing, the shoes are off, you're just chatting with the team, kind of recapping, and then you get up to walk to the car, you're like, oh shit.
Oh
No.
yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Not even
Oh, yeah.
that.
Somebody
all
help
good.
me out.
Yeah.
Help me out.
I'm gonna need you
Please?
to drive me.
That was me yesterday because I don't think I've told my team to set me that much as I did
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, our right side got voted by the opponents that we played and beat as the all-star of the tournament. So that was
Right
pretty
on.
Right on.
cool. So I gave him props, but then I also was like, somebody had to set that guy a lot. Just gonna throw that out there.
You don't say.
Gonna throw it into the.
You actually had
ether.
to set him?
He looked really
Was Phil
good.
Tomachich there?
For a
Don't you
reason.
just throw that thing up in the air and pray?
Wow, man! Wow, bro!
I saw Phil today, man.
Did you?
I do a private. That's why. So
Nice.
What was Phil Tomachich there? That was out of pocket.
Wow.
Come on.
That was so out of pocket. Oh, careful! There might be some water there. Nolan, don't slip on it.
You really got my Achilles
Wow.
heel there, Jalen.
Oh, you bastards! This is
What
what
are we
I
doing?
know.
We're gonna have so
What
much
are
fun
we
in
doing?
Vegas.
Vegas is gonna
We're
be
have
good
so
times.
much fun in
Maybe
Vegas.
we'll invite Phil up too.
Anyways, we are going to get on to the big topic at hand today. We are going to go over our most humbling experiences as both players and coaches, because I feel like there are definitely times in both where you have to kind of, take that L and own up to some stuff that you've done and kind of realize where you're at. So Nolan, I'll swing it to you first. Your most humbling experience as a player first, and then we'll work our way back down for everybody as a coach.
I would say the most humbling experience really is just moving up to college volleyball. You especially my area where we came from, volleyball's not known very well, or it's not really a passion sport for too many people who move on to do more. So it's like you kind of get a certain bubble of knowledge of volleyball, and you think you know all that knowledge. Then you go to college, and there's those outer rings of things that you would have never thought of when you were still 18 or younger. So I think for sure going to Hope, for better or for worse, I learned way more there than I did actually through the high school years, just because you understand the game in a different way. You see things in a different way. You understand serve receive, what schematics for defense you should be running. It was a pleasant, humbling experience because I knew that there was more I needed to do to grow, as opposed to just thinking that I was supposed to go there and be handed anything, because that's never how it works out. So going there, learning from all those guys, even first season with Vic and Poyer, though they're always kind of bantering back and forth, I still learned a lot from them. Tim and Mike, as much as we gripe about them as our coaches for that portion, still learned a chunk from them as well. It wasn't like it was just an empty existence of me being on that team. And so I think for sure Henry and Noah, when they took over that last season, probably everything I learned from them equaled the 3 years with Tim and Mike.
Yeah. No, really
But,
though. Yeah. You're
so
right, yeah.
it's always good in kind of that respect. So I do appreciate that humbling experience, because it's something that everyone does need to go to. There's always going to be a bigger pond. You're always going to end up being that small fish. Whether you grow to fit that pond or not is up to you.
Not to call them out or like put you on the spot or anything, but from your high school experience, because I know you said that you kind of came from a program that wasn't really necessarily known for volleyball.
Gotcha.
Like system wise, did you really learn like all the traditional system stuff while you were there, or did that really come when you went to Hope?
We learned the basics, and I would never talk down on my high school coach, because
obviously
he's probably one of the most favorite coaches there because of just how personable he is. He was one of those guys that would have been the perfect dad in high school, but he just didn't have a kid yet, and so we knew that.
And to be fair to him, he probably was kind of like pillar foundational type of coach
Yeah,
where
he was the
he's
first
literally
coach
he's literally
coach.
bringing all the
Yeah.
coaching knowledge that
And he'd never played volleyball growing up. It was one of those things where he learned and was able to
Got you.
provide it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did learn from him, but it was the basics. And like you learn, it's one of those things where you're in high school. Obviously, I had club as well, so I learned a little more in-depth things there. But in high school, it's like, all right, row one, I know where I'm supposed to stand, as opposed to, oh, row one, you can't be here, but I can be here. Then this. It was never understanding
Big
that.
switch,
It was like just knowing where you needed to stand for the rotation, and then you went with it. Club taught me a little more, so I could understand like, hey, we should do this, as opposed. But yeah, it was that kind of small bubble. He was blessed with one of the years that I was on the team with him that we just had a phenomenal team. Gave the school its first like league championship, went to the semis of CIF, so it was a big thing for him because he was just a great nurturing guy. It was one of those coaches you wouldn't mind going out to having dinner to catch up with.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Absolutely, nice. Jared, your most humbling experience as a player.
As a player? There was none. No, just kidding.
I was like, bro,
that's a goat
you
right
already
there.
know.
That's my goat right there, baby.
No, I mean, there was volleyball wasn't always big when I was growing up. Especially because I'm old, right? So the game has grown so much since I've been playing the game. Especially coming here to California and being here for over 10 years now and watching how the game has just expanded. Like there's probably twice as many boys clubs and everything. So knowing all that, when I first started playing club in Hawaii, like it was so small, and like we'll always talk about it with our kids. You literally play in adult tournaments. There are no junior tournaments. You get thrown into adult tournaments, and part of that is it was partially a humbling experience because like you're a high school kid. You think you're at the top of your game in a sense because our side out team that we put together, the one that I played with Henry. Actually, I didn't even play with Henry yet when that happened. We were handpicked like from the public schools. Not the private schools, because private schools, they all went to Outrigger or they played somewhere else. We had public schools, and all the public schools are our one team literally was the best of the best on the OIA East, and Henry played with the best of the best on the OIA West. And then at the end of the year, we wanted to go to JOs, is when we put everything together. So first off, like playing against adults and being able to see a game at a different speed, because it wasn't big. So that was my first year ever playing club. So watching again and like, oh, we can hang with these guys, And then there's a team like Vic's team, the Poyer, and like that was first experience of like, oh wow, this is a team that actually ball, and we hung well with them. So that's part of the humbling experience, just to see the volleyball at a different level, because we've been to camps and you did all that other little stuff at UH, and you get to see these guys and they're like, oh, they're good, but they're like a lot older, they're a lot taller, they're a lot stronger than me, so it doesn't mean that much to me. When we see a player like Vic actually setting and running an offense, it's kind of crazy. Like,
were you hitting then?
I was setting. I was still setting then.
I was like, okay,
when
I was curious,
Yeah. So I was setting it for that. And then when we put the teams together, Henry set, and then I learned to play opposite. Never taught how to hit, by the way. Never taught how to hit. So they're like, oh, you got to play opposite. You're going to pass it 5 of the 6 rotations. Okay, cool. I can do whatever you want me to do. But going to the mainland, going to JOs was kind of a humbling experience because, bro, I've never seen guys 6'7" before. I've never seen guys 6'5", tall, tall white boys.
You've never seen them before.
And then,
not in
and then
Hawaii.
and then they had a Puerto Rican team there that we didn't get to play, but they played on the court next to us, and they had an opposite that jumped out of the building. And I was just like, dude, what is this?
And came from the rafters.
And like, it was humbling in a sense because you're like, okay, wow, these kids are 18. They're the same age as me, and they're like freak athletes. But I sat a guy down, at 6'6". Sorry, 6'5", 6'6". Went up on the right side, just shithouse him. Like straight down, I said, Vic, take me out, Vic. I take my shoes off. I'm leave it here. I'm gonna walk off the court because I guarantee you. No, I was like, I guarantee you the guy's gonna OT me. I did not touch a single ball for the rest of the match. He OT'd like to a point where I would say I got pulled because I'm small. Like I was jumping 40 plus, but I'm small, and this guy's already like 6'5", 6'6", and he's tall, white, and long. And I'm just like, I'm going up, and I got you. And then he just goes up just a little more. And I'm like, And Vic took me on, and I was like, Vic, I don't care, man. I was like, I got my
He's
one
like, you
block.
go up and then he jumps.
Yeah, I was like, no, he would go up, and I would think, okay, I'm gonna meet him at the top, and I would go up, and then I was like, oh, that's not his top. I was like, holy crap. Yeah, that was pretty humbling for me in that regard, in a sense of like playing against people that big and that tall. College wise, I don't know. Like Nolan said, the speed of the game and everything, but I had already been playing the game for so long, been to like 4 adult nationals and doing all that. So it wasn't so much that. I think for me, a humbling experience was when we played Pep. When we went to Pep and played Pep, playing against Matt West, Josh Taylor, who was the opposite?
Shit.
Torres.
That game was a
Torres.
blur.
And just the first set, they played all their stars. And they didn't
It
play
was a
anybody
blur.
after that. No, it was. It literally was.
That's when
a
you
blur.
know it was a bad memory.
We had one job, and it was to win warm-ups, and I don't believe we succeeded.
I don't think we won warm-ups. We had Shalimar to try and win warm-ups too. We had Shao, and like Shao, if we're gonna win warm-ups, man, you're gonna win it for us right here.
I think
we had one job was to win warm-ups.
That's literally what it was.
Hey, but we're the better looking team. I was like,
okay. So we won something.
Guys, they look like models, okay?
Yeah. No, but I think that was a humbling thing when we played Pep, because I mean, getting to play against a player like Matt West, watching his offense, playing against his jump serve. I don't even think I lived that. I don't even know if I lived that game. I might only DS that game, but it's because we played by the NCAA rules. I think that's why. So it was weirdly different or something. But yeah, just watching the division, the jump between NAIA to Division One, and just seeing, because Pepperdine was actually a pretty good program at that time with Josh Taylor and Torres and Matt West setting their offense. I think that for me, that was kind of a little bit more of a humbling experience. I mean, I played against guys good. I mean, I played against Taylor Crabb. I've got to play against like the Micah Christiansens, but to watch it together and like a fully collegiate team that's a Division One, because I think that was our first Division One game, right? That
we
year.
only get one.
We played UCSD and them that year, didn't we?
I think they were. Yeah, they were D2.
Oh, because they were considered D2. That's why we got to play them. Yeah, so that was our first. That was our Division One matchup for that year, and that's the first time, like, as a libero. I mean, I've done it at different levels as an outside and everything, but as a libero, watching, Dume try to block Torres down the line, and you just see Dume stop, and this guy's still going up, and I'm like, dude, I see your whole head. I was like, okay,
what do I do?
I was like, hit me anywhere but in the face. Anywhere but in the
just
face.
don't block,
Like,
just cover the tip next time, okay?
Yeah. Dume stand on the ground like 5 feet off and then jump, and then I will play like 25 feet deep.
Right.
It's like, but. Yeah, for me that's kind of what
really
it was.
close, so he has to like go straight
Dude,
down.
I'm sure we all should have just laid on the ground and made human starfish, and then pray he hits a limb and it goes up, and then jump up. Everyone jumps up to go chase it.
It was a slaughtering.
But,
it was not.
No, but it was
an experience.
I would say that was a great
experience.
That was an experience for sure. But yeah, for me, as a player, those are probably the moments I would say.
Yeah. Rock and roll. And Keone, for you as a player of the game, most humbling experience that you can recall.
It's funny because mine is probably going to be like the saddest probably of everybody's here, but I had to think of one that was like probably for me something I think people can relate to, that I think is kind of like a teachable moment for us here on the podcast, especially. It was getting cut from the team my 8th grade year. So the middle school, right? Obviously, I was like, I don't know why I couldn't think what year 8th grade is in, but yeah. So for 7th grade, I make the team, right? And for those who don't know, Kamehameha, like I said, is one of those schools where we get kids every so often. So 4th grade is one of those years. 7th grade is a year where we add another probably 100 plus kids, and then 9th grade again they add a bunch of kids. So 7th grade, like we get a bunch of kids in at the same time. They have the whole trials for volleyball. I think I knew one guy who was going out. It was my best friend. I told him, I was like, "You're going out?" I was like, "I'll go out if you go out." And we had kind of played before, up until that point, like PAL stuff and some like minor club stuff. So we went out, we make the team. Like we have like a pretty fun year. It's like for, it's 7th grade. You're still kind of learning all the basics, but you're slowly going through all that stuff to get ready for high school and all that. I was like the starting libero for that team because I was obviously very short. But yeah, so that year plays out. We have a good time. And I think, and it's something my dad always reminds me of ever since that, especially about just not getting too high on your highs. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely went in to 8th grade year really feeling myself because, I had a starting libero position and I was like playing on this team with all my friends and we always had a really good time. And I felt like I had a really good relationship with my coach. I think even at the end of the year, he said I was one of his favorite players just because I like put in the work and I've worked really hard for him. And 8th grade comes around and tryouts come around. And I think me mentally, I can't even think what I was thinking at the time because it's just so far removed from me. But according to my dad, he was watching the tryouts and he thinks like I kind of let it all get to my head, and I'm automatically thinking like, this is going to be another good year with the boys playing. Like, can't wait. I'm excited. Like, let's just, like I'm talking about like what games are going to win and stuff like that. And like all this stuff, like, oh, who we're going to play next. Oh, we got to play Punahou and all these things. And I remember the entire tryouts, I'm just not doing good, like at all. And we get like a good influx of like random kids who didn't come out in my 7th grade year that did come out again for that 8th grade year. And then obviously you have the 7th graders who came up from 6th grade coming up. And we're going all the way down the cuts. We get to like the last cut. And I just remember sitting there like with my friends, like almost like, oh, bro, I cannot wait till like season starts next week and all this kind of stuff. And they do this thing where the coach will he tells everybody like where everybody's listening to the assistant coach, so we're all just sitting there like listening, and the coach is like talking about whatever happened at the tryout, and then the head coach will actually go around and he'll basically like tap you on the shoulder if you got cut, and he'll like come and talk to you on the side. Basically, is what they would do during that. So I remember I'm sitting there, I'm sitting like literally in the middle of like four of my friends, and we're all like talking, blah blah blah, like it's gonna be so fun, all this stuff, and then like literally I get tapped on the shoulder, and I remember just thinking like, oh, yeah, what's up, coach? Like thinking like, oh, he wants to talk to me about something, and he literally pulls me to the side, and I tell you, not like as a kid who like is yeah, I mean, I'm competitive, but I'm not like super overly competitive. But I was like, as a kid who just like really, really was on a high for that moment, it was like one of the most heartbreaking things I think I've ever been through. To like go from playing on the team with like my best friends to just not even playing that entire year. And we have two teams, right? So that first year, we were all, like me and all my friends were on the lower team because mostly 8th graders were on the upper team. And for that second year, like all my friends were on the top team and I didn't even make the lower team. So it like made it just that much worse. And I was like, I remember him talking to me and telling me like, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's your attitude. You came in and, you were kind of, you didn't really seem to be putting in that much effort and you were kind of goofing around during tryouts and all this kind of stuff. And I can tell you, not like it just wasn't even in my mind what he was telling me. Like I just like was so out of it because I was like almost mad at him and all this kind of stuff. And then obviously like afterwards I go to my dad and I'm like crying and my dad's like, I told you, like he's just like, this is exactly what I told you was going to happen. I'm like, you're getting too high on yourself and all this stuff. And like, didn't help either. But I just remember thinking like that was one of the most absolutely terrible moments like for me in volleyball. And needless to say, that was a time when I think kind of the next year you really, really focus. You really, try to get your work in over the summer. So it was a lot more of me training at the gym a lot, getting in shape, getting my legs strong, getting all that stuff. I was still short then, so I still was figuring out like what I could do. So it was mostly like passing, getting passing drills done really well, getting my setting hands a lot better. And it's funny how just those times are probably the most key for anybody in their career. So I always say, like, for anybody who's like going through one of those moments, just remember, don't get too low on the lows, don't get too high on the highs, and
No
just try to
wonder
focus
Michael
on.
Jordan's your favorite player.
Brought him in, man. Brought him in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I guess that leaves just little old me, right? I will tell you that
as it gets darker and darker.
It does get darker and darker.
Yeah.
At least as a player, it is probably not
didn't
what you guys
realize
are
how
going to
dark it
guess.
got. I know,
Well,
it's
dude, it's
literally
fucking
like-
8:30 here. Okay,
know,
sorry, not
I
like
was so
pure
focused on
West
Coyote's
Coast.
square that like
I know
he
Coyote
starts- I
Square
was
is
like,
so
"Holy-"
bright
here in
compared
the
to
rest
yours.
of the world, we're about 8:30, 9 o'clock almost. But I guess you guys would probably assume that my most humbling moment is in college when I got to Hope and had to deal with the whole Phil thing. But for me, it was actually when I transferred out and got to Valley, because I had left that year. So I left all my friends, right? First year at Valley, like I still remember like talking to you guys as much as possible because like it just sucked because the whole situation with not getting the money I was supposed to get from Vic because Tim was there and all this shit, right? But I ended up playing like a good chunk of that first year. And so like I was competing in the gym and the other setter, like we had beef to start because I didn't have Chip. I had a boulder because of what had happened at Hope already. So I walked into that gym and I said, like, fuck you. Like, I'm going to play. I don't care if you're a senior. Like, this is it. And ended up being able to squeak out some court time and start a lot of games. And it was a good time. But it was my senior year where the most humbling experience had to come in because we got a Italian setter, Andrea Maggio. Hopefully, I'll send him this copy because he is to this day still one of my closest teammates, and I love that dude to death. But he was the catalyst for this moment of my senior year heading into it. It was kind of up in the air between him and I, who was going to be, the 5-1 runner of the show. And we got to, the first game, second game, third game of the season, and that feeling kind of sinks in. And I just straight up point blank asked my coach, I'm like, bro, like, am I playing or am I just like chilling out till senior day? And he said, we're going to go with Andrea. And I was just like, what? Like, why? And there's no bigger I had cutthroat moment, but I also appreciate the honesty that my coach had with me. And it was just straight up, he just liked the way that Andrea ran the offense better. It wasn't a blocking thing. It wasn't a defense thing. It wasn't a height thing. It was straight up, he just liked how Andrea set better. And and then you have to make that transition of moving out of me and still being a good senior leader for the rest of your team and supporting that decision and understanding where you are, and really letting go of that. And that's kind of the things that I was trying to emulate and talk to my boys about this year, because we did have some of those issues where guys weren't playing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like, you're on the bench, you're on the roster, but like, if you're not competing against that guy in practice every day, then we're not going to go where we need to go. So that's kind of where my job ended up being. And like, I mean, there was some straight up wars in these scrims at practice. Like, I was not holding back anything. And as soon as, if he ever needed to come out, like, we were good because I was good to go. But I think that moment of just realizing that sometimes like two guys at a very high level can play, and it just comes down to just like, the coach likes this one better, and it's not even really ability given. It's just like, he thinks we look better running it out of that guy's hands than this guy's hands. And that was one of those moments where, like, if you're a listener, it probably sounds crazy to think about, but when you get to that high level, it really does come down to that. Like, some guys run an offense one way, some guys run a different way, and that's why setters change and all that kind of stuff. So that was easily my most humbling moment as a player of volleyball to date. And then I'll just lead right into, as far as coaching goes. I think it was my first year coaching girls, where I had a game plan, and the girls were doing it pretty well. And then we dropped the next two sets. Like, we came out, we rolled set one. I told my girls to kind of keep sticking with it. And it was kind of that experience of just like, I coached at college at this point. I had helped out at Valley in college a little bit. And then I get down to high school, and I'm just like, damn, like, the amount of investment you got to put in for adjustments. Like, I think that for that game, I don't remember who we were playing, but like, it was definitely a team we should have beat. But I straight up did not counter the coach's adjustments to what we were doing in that game. And I just kept getting more frustrated at why our game plan wasn't working. not realizing like the other coach clearly made notes after set 1, and that's why they turned 2 right back on us and we lost in 5. Like that's, that was a bit of a punch. You got to take it and you got to own it. And you have to understand that as a leadership perspective of like, okay, I need to do more work on my end for my girls to get, better. And I think when you have that as a coach, it's hard, and you do your best, but until you have it, you're really operating on like, well, it's working, right? So it can't be going that bad, like,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I think, my first year coaching girls at the high school level when that game happened was huge, because then from then on it never happened again. You know what I mean? Like, sure, we lost games, but it was more of an execution. It wasn't because the game plan was bad. So that's one that is always kind of sitting right there in the back of my head. And if we're struggling and stuff, I'm just like, all right, well, what's not working in the game plan? Clearly I missed something. Let's just switch things up. Let's move, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll flip it over to Nolan. Your most humbling experience as a coach of volleyball.
I would say it's actually a little more recent. Most of you guys, I know Jalen has, Jared has, Keone, you met Andy, right?
The assistant,
my friend from
high school. No, Andy used to come over your house.
Yeah.
Played at OBCC for a year.
Yeah.
I remember having him come out to one of my club practices, and he'd been frequently every now and then. If he had free time, he'd come and hit against my team and whatever maybe. And I remember asking him one time, I was like, "Oh, how do you think I'm doing as a coach?" And he said, "Honestly, like, your shit, but you try to be too much of a friend with your team. Like, you have a great relationship with your players, but you let that cloud a lot of the things that they can get away with, whether that is, underperforming during a drill, and me just kind of, it's okay, all right, guys, let's do this instead. We'll move on." He's like, back when we played club, you remember our coaches. If we did something stupid like that, we'd never hear the end of it, and he'd make sure that we knew that wasn't how we're supposed to play volleyball.
Or we're running, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Whether that's running or whether that's grilling us just with verbally or whatever it may be. He's like, I think you're passing the knowledge to them, but it gets to a point sometimes where you can think they know that they may, or even if they're not doing it on purpose, they know that they can get away with stuff. Because
shout out to Andy, that's a good friend, man.
I was like, all right. And I think for the past couple of years, that's really kind of changed my mindset in regards to what am I going to allow my team to get away with, whether this is a team that I have that is, there, because I've had different walks of life teams, whether that's a team that I know can compete at the higher part of the division for our area, or the teams that I know I'm just going to try to get you better from the day one to the last day we're together. That's my goal. And I know that there are certain ways that I have to adjust where it's like, okay, this team, I know I can't necessarily dig into them because that's not who they are. And I know that they're not striving to be the all-stars of the area. They're trying to get better for their team, for high school, or they just want to be a better player. And then there are the teams that do want to take that leap, and I do have to be a little more aggressive with, because, hey, if I don't do it with you now, you're not going to do it later. So I pretty much, I think that was the for sure the biggest humbling thing. And I think I had a talk with Shal about it too, and he was kind of in agreement. He's like, yeah, I've come play with you guys, but Shal thinks any team I coach sucks because it's Shal, and but you'd always
no,
like,
that's not sound like Shalimar at all.
Like, yeah, I don't know why they're doing that, and I know we coached together one time, and a lot of his was, I was like, oh, Shal, do you think we should do this? He's like, it's your team, do what you want, and then we do it. And it wouldn't work out. He's like, I would have done this. I was like, Shal, what the fuck?
No, that sounds about right for Shalimar.
It doesn't exactly sound like a wrong Shalimar story.
But,
that's a true Shalimar story. Come on, man.
Those were a couple turning points, just kind of seeing it from that point of view, especially with the team I have now that I know is a competitive higher level team for 17th division. I know that they should be striving to do a little more, and I shouldn't take my foot off the gas with them, at least.
Right. I know. Jared, I'll flip it over to you. Your most humbling experience as a coach of the volleyball.
As a coach, well, I think there's like a couple at least. No, no. The first of all, I think you kind of put it off perfectly about how much investment that you had to have as a coach, changing from a lot of different things, whether it was club or high school or college. Man, the first thing, humbling wise, was literally that for me. How much time and effort and how much of the backside and how much that I didn't give enough coaches credit for.
Yeah.
Like, great, you taught me the game. Get you did this. I didn't realize how much
Mm.
actually goes behind. I mean, not all coaches do it. Don't get me wrong. I know all coaches don't do it. Where they're watching film, where they're giving you this, they're like, hey, in this you do this and things like that. And so, for me, the humbling part of it was how much I had to do it because when I coached at Hope with Henry, we watched a lot of film. We watched a lot of little things because we film practice and we film games. So I have to go over. I have to upload practice film. So therefore, I have to watch it
Wish
basically
we had that.
and make sure. And then
No, right, that'd be dope. Yeah.
for games, I sit down and I go back. Like, say we played Menlo, and we're going to play them again. I'll go back and I'll restat everything and go into tendencies and like that time and investment of things that I could possibly else be doing with my life. Warzone and things like that. I mean, I would have to put that on the back burner or do that at the same time while I'm,
Yeah.
literally doing my stats and everything. So, I mean, for the humbling part of it was literally that was one of it for me.
Yeah.
Second, it was kind of like I kind of had a Nolan story where it was just somebody being very blunt with me about the way I coach. And it's kind of triggered the way I coach differently now. I am still me as that being. And honestly, it's Henry. Henry, coaching with Henry, I've learned so much. I owe him a lot because he brought me into ACT. I coach boys with him. I coach college with him. It's just a lot that we do together in general, volleyball wise. And he always refers to me as the nice coach, and I am the nice coach for the most part. I get along with all the players. I'm Mother Mary to the kids. Like, you got a problem, don't come see Henry. You got to come see me, and that's actually the job of an assistant coach.
Yeah.
And I understand my role. There's a yin to yang, right? Henry can be a dick, and then I have to be the nice person. And if I want to be a dick, then Henry will be the nice person. But for the most part, that's the way it always worked. That's the way I operate as a coach. Um, but moving to being a head coach, like, you can't be that person. And I've talked to him multiple times about, like, hey, in this aspect, in that aspect, and a lot of it is like, you just need, like, you're the nice coach, and that's the way it normally works. And he literally told me, sometimes you're just a little too nice. And the best truth is the honest truth that a
Mm-hmm.
coach could ever give to
Yeah.
any player to make them a better player. Is like, can't always sugarcoat things. And so I think I've, like, for me, that was one of the biggest things because my teams are good for the most part. I would say the teams that I get to head coach, but I've coached along Henry long enough to know, like, I put a team that, like, I think I went back one time and I was like, okay, I had this team with Henry as a head coach, and then I have my team with Henry as I'm a head coach and he's my assistant, kind of thing. Like, we're piggybacking things. And why is his team so much more successful than mine, or why do I feel like they're getting so much more out of it? And
Mm-hmm.
we've had conversations at Sunset, at other places, where we're just sitting down and we can be real and talk volleyball and just be friends and not just be like mentor or anything. It's
Hmm.
just, we're equals, and he's like, this is what it is, and then we break down kind of little things. And so for me, when I found out, like, oh, this is why literally his teams are more successful, it's kind of a shot to your ego because you think, hey, I mean, I know the game. I'm still a sponge. I'm still learning the game a lot as far as it goes, but I feel like I'm very successful in the things that I do. And then when they're not successful on the court, and is it the coaching and this and that, and then when you look at it, and sometimes it is you. And I think
Yeah.
that was probably the most humbling experience because it is me being too nice to people, being too nice to, like, we always talk about guys and girls you coach differently because of the way you have to talk to them. But
Mm-hmm.
in all honesty, if people want gender issues to be um, equal rights, then why don't we coach girls the same way we coach boys? And the
Right.
one season that I actually decided to do that was the season that I got the most out of my girls. And so I think that was a very good realization for me that I can be a blunt, sarcastic person to, like, how I am with the boys, to the girls. But why do I always have to be the nice coach when I should just get this message across? So, like you said,
Yeah.
thankful to Henry because that guy's his not just his volleyball IQ, but his IQ to deal with people and personalities and everything is just on a whole freaking other level. It's ridiculous. He is like, he loves to claim that he's a master manipulator, and I really do claim that he can do that because he really knows how to get his message across and get it to the way you can think it's your idea, but it's really not your idea. It's really his idea, that he's trying to get you to be a better person, a better coach, or really just wants you to do what he wants you to do, kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, that's where I got to give my props to the things that I've learned from him, and the making me the kind of the coach that I am today because of those experiences, and like the humbling of that one little saying of, dude, you're just too nice.
Yeah.
And that's literally what it came down to.
It's just like funny you said that, because I was just thinking, I was like, man, now that I think about it, he did get me to drink a lot at his house.
No, I mean, dude, everybody in that house was a master manipulator. Rich, let's be real. Rich was probably the biggest instigator.
Rich is like a coddler. What he does is he kind of like suckers you in. He shows you his little aquarium tank thing, and he's like hanging out with you, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, if you want, he's just like hands you like a beer or something. He's just like talking to you, and you're just like, I know.
Just all of a sudden,
So
you're
you
just
mean
like,
another-
It's like, where did this come from? I was looking at the
Like-
fishes.
Oh, don't worry. Hey, just leave the
Shout
kid
out
here.
to
Take
Rich,
this
yeah.
one.
Right.
Boy. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, that makes sense, and it's interesting that you brought up that dynamic of like assistant to head coach, because I think that's something that also humbles you too at some point, especially one that I kind of had to fight that a little bit with mine, because there's things that you don't realize when you're going from that assistant to head role, right? Because my assistants want, specifically my assistant for boys. I mean, she's why the reason why I wanted her as my assistant is because she like is very much straight on it and very direct, like polar opposite of me, real feisty, like not putting up with any BS. But like the part that is hard when you haven't had that role is trying to get her to understand, because she's a little bit younger too. So I mean, she really wants like the outcome based stuff all the time. Is to understand that yes, we can do X, Y, Z, but there are ramifications at the high school level. Like I can pull kids in and out, I can have that rough, like cut them, do them, whatever, but then I'm not going to have good relationships with any of my boys. I'm not going to have any good relationships with any of the guys that are starting. I'm not going to have any good relationships with guys on the bench. And then on top of all of that, inevitably you can, say what you want about, your parent policy is that they shouldn't talk to you and this and that, but it is going to happen when you start doing X, Y, Z. And then all of a sudden I'm in a meeting and then I have to talk about this and that. And it's just a whole swell of like roles sometimes that you don't like understand, and explaining that to your, younger assistants when you're trying to like kind of coach and mentor them as they come up, is definitely something that can kind of take you back, because most of us were in that position trying to become a head coach, and you don't really realize it until you're in that spot of like, well, I would do this and whatever. I think this kid should play, and you're like, well, there's a reason they're not. There's a reason to put my foot down. You know what I mean? Like X, Y, Z. So, but yeah, really Keone, if you have a,
it's funny. I do.
With the shipyard, go ahead and
no, not even from that. It was. I think it was actually from my actual first real coaching experience.
Gotcha.
It's a short one. It's just funny for me because of like Jared kind of brought it up of like all the little things that you don't understand at the time that you had mentioned, Jay. It's funny how as a player you kind of think to yourself like, oh, I could coach, like for sure. Like I played this long, I was like, I've been in the
things that I do, right? Like,
I was like, exactly. It's like I remember the drills from practice, like that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say that I went into the job thinking like cockily like that. Like I wasn't like thinking I was going to be a great coach, but I did go in there kind of, and I was nervous as hell when I first tried. But I thought everything has just like locked in here. And then the moment you get there and the kids are looking at you and they're like, "What's up, coach? Like, what do we got to do?" And I'm like, "Huh?" like immediately, like I realized like right off the rip that I hadn't really thought about like how the practice was going to run and what drills we're going to do. And like, I know, like, it's like, and the fact that I got these kids here who are basically just learning the sport of volleyball. So I was like, what level I'm at, like what I have to coach today. And all that stuff hadn't occurred to me within probably that first day and maybe even the first week. And it was after that first week where I was like, okay, now I know what I need to be looking into. Because we had tryouts for a week before that, and I was paying attention to the kids. But I think, as most people do, you kind of almost like focus on like the good kids, and I coach the lower teams, so you know what I mean. Like you're kind of like focused on them, and you kind of forget about the kids that are eventually going to be the ones that you coach.
Like, those are
So
yours.
yeah, so there was a lot of that, and I was kind of like, wow, that kid's good, like that kind of stuff. And it just felt good to be back in there, because like it'd probably been like 5 years, I think, since I actually like did any sort of competitive volleyball or anything at that point. But yeah, I mean, going in there, realizing I had so much work to do that I hadn't even thought about prior to that experience. Realizing what I had to actually teach, what I was actually coaching. Yeah, it was definitely, that for me was really like a humbling thing, and I can only imagine how it is for you guys going to different levels of volleyball. So yeah, from my experience, that was it. The first game, that was another one, just slowly trying to figure out what the team does well and doesn't do well. I mean, the only thing I think that was weird for us was that we had that weird situation with the kid who was not supposed to be on our team but was
I do
on our
remember
team
that
from
kid.
varsity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did win because of that. And
He was nice.
we were undefeated the whole season
Hey,
that year.
hey.
It's like we were undefeated, but it was like we probably shouldn't have been without him. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was for me. It was definitely one of those like just eye opening experiences. So shout out to you guys for doing that on multiple levels, because that for me was like, wow.
Woo!
There's a
Love it.
lot more time included in this job.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, like in general, about how you have to coach,
Oh
coaching
yeah.
to levels, and like you said, there's a lot of players, not a lot of players, a lot of coaches who just look at the good kids.
No.
A lot of coaches who do. You'll bypass, and sometimes it sucks because like I'll catch myself with some of the kids sometimes too. But I do know, like, hey, you got to remember there are 15 players on this team. You can't just pay attention to
Yeah.
5 of them.
Mhm.
I mean, even if you feel like you always talk to those other 10 kids, you can't not talk to them, because once you stop talking to them, you got to realize, especially at the high school level, that they think you gave up on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Yeah,
think
they
that's
keep
the
that
hardest part, because that's my biggest thing too. If I stop teasing you or stop like talking to you and things like that, it's basically telling you that I gave up on you.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think
I also
because
gotta
I'm
say,
sarcastic. I'm sarcastic with all my players, all my
the
boys at
And
Olu,
I was gonna
especially.
say, the other thing that was like humbling was the generational gap slash the cultural difference of
oh,
Hawaii versus California. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah,
different.
like in Hawaii they're a lot more like, you fucker, get over here. What I told you on that last play, like that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So there
yep.
was a lot of like me reeling that back a little bit, because I was just
California, it's
like,
Kyle, sit the fuck down. Come on,
and,
man.
Took the
and that's
405 to the 101 to get down here.
yeah.
What's wrong with you? That's why you're late for practice. Take
You're
a
Uh,
late
lap.
again. You know what time
but
practice
yeah, it was
starts.
like, I think that was like another big thing, like the generational gap of like, you know, coddling a little bit more of the feelings, and not really, necessarily going too hard with the like, come on, you dummies, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, that was definitely for me another big thing. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and it's good because I think like I feel like between all of us, we all have more of that process outcome mindset, kind of deal
Mhm.
versus the outcome focused stuff, which I think, when it comes to like super great, like the teams that I think of, like Russ Rose, like he knew where he wanted to go, but he also had to like understand this is the process of how we get to that point. Like these are the drills we have to do.
That's
This
a
is
very
the
good point.
schedule we have to do. These are the things that we have to expect out of our players. These, all of these things are in that process of stuff has to get towards the outcome, not just
Yep.
thinking about, well, we want to win a lot and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna win a
It's
lot.
like, even though we do want to win a lot, but
Like,
So
you know what I
how
mean? Like,
do you win a lot?
right.
it's like
And
secretly we
that's-
want to win a lot, but
and it's a trap that I think a lot of at least at the high school level that I see, that's a trap that I think a lot of coaches fall into because they have the good kids, right? And they just want to sit there and let them play, and they don't really think about like, well, what about like the other kids below them? You know what I mean? Like it's a process of things. Like the good kids can help set the tone for your program, not
Yeah.
just like get you the wins. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I think going through that, especially with what What I'm trying to do right now is a similar thing that I had to do at Mobab with JV, which is like, listen, we're not going to take anyone that breathes. Like, I'm going to recruit some good kids, but we're going to make this a functional club volleyball experience where like these guys should be in your gym by their junior and senior year, not just on the roster for NIA, scholarship boosting stuff.
No, I 100% agree with that. Like it's
Like,
crazy how program directors have to look at this in the bigger picture of like developing, and the one thing that I think is most important is developing the culture.
Yeah, that's hard.
Like that's the hardest part. We came into Olu, I remember our first year with boys and girls, and culture was horrible. Like it
Toughest
was
year
bad.
that first year.
And our first year that we were there, we got so many compliments of thank you for helping my kid, thank you for changing the program, thank you for this. Like, we didn't really do anything different. I mean, we brought the Hawaii part of it where we bring a lot of love and everything for the teams, and you want everybody to be intertwined. But apparently before we got there, it's kind of one of those like, oh, Frostsoft did their own thing. JV did their own thing. Varsity was too good to do anything, so they kind of just did their own thing. And we tried to integrate everything. And now, even with the boys' side that we have both, we're trying to integrate the boys and girls side. Like how we did a black and red scrimmage where we did a co-ed game.
Yeah.
With the varsity players, with the varsity boys and varsity girls, and they did like a co-ed match, and they got to play the coaches at the end. So we played a bunch, and it was just like a fundraiser day and a good fun like experience and families could come. And like my JV boys just played each other because we didn't want to include the girls, just because they don't have as much control.
Right.
And then the varsity kids, like we split them up I think we split them up pretty evenly. It was a good match, and we let them play co-ed together. And then we played one set with the one team against the coaches, and the other team was one set against the coaches. So, I mean, the fact that you have to build that culture, and like you said, you've done it on multiple stages as college as you're doing in high school. I think people don't give program directors enough credit in that regard of what you have to really do with the kids. It's not even at that point. It's not even volleyball.
Yeah.
No.
And it's crazy kids. When you have to think about that.
Opposite tier of you, like what I walked into was just there was, and it's my high school. Like I came out of there, like we were part of that run for at least, I think it was like 7 years of being consistently a 20+ win program. And they hadn't been that in the last, since I left. So I walk back into, my house and I see this dysfunction. And then basically there's just no standard. There's no like expectation of like, no, like volleyball is fun. Like we're going to do fun things because it's boys volleyball, right? We're gonna be goofy. There's gonna be stupid celebrations, like all this stuff, right? But like we're here to win games. Like we are here to compete and win. Like I don't care who's across the net. You're a public school, so every time we play a private school, you should be that much more jacked up to go get a set from them.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there was none of that. And like I said, this group, which is that I'm so in love with from the season.
Let's go private schools.
Shut up, you daddy's money looking.
Damn ILH kids.
Champions all the time inside.
Wow.
The culture stuff, you know what I mean? That's the stuff that I had to break compared to you. You had to bring the love, but I had to like straight up break kids. I was just like, here's the deal. Like, this is not okay. And like, I don't care that you're a senior. Like, you're going to sit and watch a freshman play because this kid gets it and you don't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And this group is, again, I'm so thankful that I had them in the back pocket when I walked in the door because my assistant, my JV coach, and my freshman coach all came to the same conclusion. I think halfway through that first year last year, we were just like, "Fuck the seniors, we're playing these kids."
Man, that's crazy.
We're gonna get
so
smashed,
like how we had to bring the love kind of thing, like you said. You know what the biggest part of what made it successful was our senior class.
Our
senior class was like on board, and they took initiative as well as helping us out and validating and trying to help build the culture. And I think that speaks a lot to them. But I mean, it's nice when you don't actually have to break players to get them out of their ways, whether they're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. The fact that we had that, what really makes for it. And man, that's tough.
Yeah, we had a couple that were great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like but just as a whole, like they weren't senior leaders, you know what I mean? Like they didn't buy into everything that me and my assistant at the time were selling, and all that stuff. Cause we brought a lot of stuff from Valley and on all that, the stuff that we grew up with, and like at least that mentality of stuff. And But yeah, it was definitely a tough go that first year, but it paid, it's dividends this year. Like they had a way better year, and these kids are only going to go up from now. Like I said, I only have 3 seniors on that particular team, so a lot of guys going to be back in the gym. A huge senior roster. We'll see what they do, next season. But here we are. But yeah, well, we've been us, and ladies and gentlemen, you've been you. So
we have.
You've been you.
We are going to let you know where you can send us some coaching questions, or maybe some great topics that you got thinking.
Or humble us a little bit.
Humble us,
Humble us
right?
all you want.
Yeah,
No
humble
one's
us,
yeah.
perfect.
Us,
There's
you know?
always a better coach.
We can
Right,
grow.
always.
We can be sponges.
But Jared, where can the people find you on the internet?
On Instagram and Twitch at jshirai, JSHIRAI, and on Twitter at jshirai808.
And Keone, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at KONE. That's KAYOHKNEE.
Nolan.
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at NolanKYT, NOLANKYT. And if you guys are part of the club SoCal Volleyball World, I'm with Forza One West. Come say hi to me.
Yeah. Come give him a shout. Give him a fist bump.
Come
Tell
check
him
out the
you
Pro
love
Play
Golden
kids.
Soy.
Fuck 'em.
Hey, do you remember that when Henry sees you and tells you you're a celebrity?
Damn.
God damn it, Henry.
Damn.
I am not helping you.
I do not want to see him in Utah. Oh my God.
You can find me on Twitter at Jalen Holston. You can find me on Instagram at art_by_Jalen. You can find me on Twitch at Mokathanos_LGG. Once again, we've been us, you've been you. From all of us here at Poi and Soy.
Rigmarole and skiddly doo.
Good vibes and love, everybody.
Good vibes.
Bang,
and
bang.
Love.
No?
Didgeridoo.
Shoots, butter.
And didgeridoo. The mouse went up and